Do you ever catch yourself lying awake at night, analyzing everything, trying to prepare for every scenario, or planning for every possible outcome? Overthinking is one of the most common mental struggles people face, but there is a valid explanation for why this is happening. Hello everyone, I'm Savas Georgiadis, a mental health counselor based in Athens, Greece, and today we are uncovering the real reason why we overthink so much and what's truly going on in our mind and brain when that happens. So if you've ever wondered why you get stuck in your own thoughts, stick around, because understanding this could change the way you think and feel about yourself. Let's dive into it. You know that feeling when your mind won't let you rest, especially when it comes to something that really matters to you? Maybe it's a big life decision, like whether you're in the right career, if you're with the right person, or if you're even on the right path at all. You start by asking yourself a few simple questions, but before you know it, you're stuck. You're questioning every past choice that led you here and doubting every future possibility. See, this is where overthinking really kicks in. And the analysis that takes place in your head is not about solving a problem anymore. It's about getting trapped in endless what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. And unlike reflecting on a situation in order to make a thoughtful decision, overthinking doesn't have a natural endpoint. Instead, it pulls you deeper, making you second-guess everything and leaving you more confused compared to when you started. The more you think, the more trapped you feel. It's as if your mind is running in circles with no way out, and that is exactly what overthinking is all about. Here's where it gets interesting though. Overthinking actually ties back to survival instincts that have been with us since early humans stepped foot on the earth. Back then, our brains evolved to keep us safe by seeing every threat in the environment. Let's truly think about early humans for a moment. If they heard a noise in the bushes, they would instinctively pause and assess the risk. Could that be a snake? Could that be a bear that would like to have me for dinner? That extra second could make all the difference for survival. So over thousands of years, our brains became wired to predict potential dangers and avoid them whenever possible based on the triggers of the environment and their past knowledge associated to these triggers. Now, a key part of this process comes down to the amygdala, a small part of the brain often called the fear center. The amygdala is like an alarm system anytime we sense something that could be a potential threat. Even if it's just a scenario completely made up by our minds, it flips the switch on our stress response. This response is what drives that loop of worry, keeping us alert and scanning for any possible risks, even if there are none in our physical environment. And as we said earlier, in ancient times, this mechanism could be a lifesaver due to the threats our ancestors had to face. Today, not so much, as we rarely face life or death situations. So since this protective mechanism is not used to actually protect us from physical threats that are indeed present in our environments, it tends to amplify our everyday anxieties that are of course product of our rumination, triggering this way a cycle that makes it even harder to let go and move on. Once this cycle of worry starts, it can feel impossible to break out of. The more we revisit the same worries, the more the brain reinforces them, creating a mental link between thoughts and feelings. That's actually very tough to escape. If we can put it differently, in other words, every time we overthink, we are training our brain to come back to those thoughts faster. And over time, overthinking can become a self-sustaining loop, a cycle that leaves us mentally drained and keeps us stuck on repeat. So by now, we have established that overthinking ties back to survival instincts and that our brains have built pathways to protect us. But here is the big reason behind this process: our deep desire for control. At its core, overthinking is often a way we try to feel more in charge of what might happen next. Think about it. When you're faced with doubt, you might catch yourself running through every possible outcome, almost as if you're rehearsing each scenario to be prepared for whatever comes your way. Psychologists call this the illusion of control, a tendency to believe we can actually influence outcomes, even when in reality they're way beyond our reach. Studies show that the more personally involved we are in something, the stronger this illusion becomes. For example, we replay situations in our heads, believing that somehow thinking harder about it will solve things, even though most of these situations are simply out of our control. And this need for control is often amplified by two things: perfectionism and fear of failure. Perfectionists tend to overthink because they want to avoid mistakes or criticism at all costs. Every choice feels like it needs to be flawless. And on the other hand, if you're someone who fears failure, overthinking can feel like a way to dodge the pain of rejection or embarrassment. In both cases, we pretty much convince ourselves that if we just think through every detail enough, we can somehow protect ourselves from feelings of disappointment. And a lot of this comes down to a sense of insecurity or uncertainty about what's ahead. When life feels unpredictable, overthinking becomes a coping mechanism that makes us feel like we're at least doing something about our worries, even if it's all in our heads. But ironically, instead of giving us real control, this cycle of overthinking often leaves us with what I call analysis paralysis, a situation in which analyzing everything takes up so much energy and time from individuals that they end up not taking action. So to sum everything up, overthinking isn't just a habit of analyzing and worrying about everything. It's tied deeply to our survival instincts, reinforced by the mental training our brain goes through, and often driven by our desire for control and insecurities. Understanding this makes it clear that overthinking isn't just a flaw, which is something that a lot of people believe. It's part of how our minds are wired and how we train them to function. So as you go forward, I suggest you think about the situations that pull you into overthinking. Maybe understanding what's behind it can help you step back and see those thoughts for what they are. A natural response, but one you can observe without getting trapped in. That's it for today. If this video gave you a new perspective, be sure to subscribe for more content on mental wellness and breaking free from unhelpful thought patterns. A lot of videos about these topics will come and are on the way. Thanks for watching and take care of your mind.